Alright, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again for another episode. This is promised as a Sheaffer Vac-Fill, and this is the one that I flashed in front of the camera last time. And this is the exploded view. I had it all taken apart just to make sure I could, because these can be very finicky. They take a lot of patience and just finesse, so I wanted to make sure I didn't break it before promising to show you this particular pen. And as you'll see, I actually have a second one laid out that's very similar, just a couple little minor differences, because I thought I might, there's several ways to kind of get at these and replace. What really is the hard part is this packing unit, and we'll break that down in a second. But there's a couple generations of these. These are first generations where they use the entire barrel as the ink reservoir. And since I was able to get the packing units out nice and cleanly, I figured let's just do this the straightforward, easy peasy, you know what you're doing, everything's disassembled way. And then there are the second generations, and I'll pull one off camera, that just like the others, still kind of barred and everything, but you take off the outer barrel and then you have an, there it goes, inner ink chamber. This one's still very dirty, it needs to be cleaned up. But there's a couple ways to repair these, and there's a Nishimura way that I'll reference, which is basically drilling something out and then kind of resealing in the end. And then there are other methods where various parts along there you can actually cut through this chamber, replace the packing unit, and reseal it either with glue or some acetone. You're like basically melting and reattaching it to itself, but that's a little more complicated. So I figured since I had one, I'll do at least one method, because the Nishimura method I've done quite a bit, so I feel comfortable with that one. But we'll have another vac-fill tutorial coming up, and I might wait a while. I don't want to keep doing the same things just to keep it interesting for me, but that's a little teaser for next time. But so we have these two, and I think I'll focus on this one and kind of do this on the side as a bonus. I get to do two pens at once, and I'll just point out the differences, and we can kind of keep this guy off to the side. So let me see, how am I going to start with this? So imagine, if you would, that this would be the, I'll call this the first step. Let's see if we can get this top up. So the way that I get these conical nibs off, these Triumph nibs, is there's an adhesive in this, so this is a unit. I think I may have explained this possibly with the touchdown or the snorkel, but there is, it may not, this red part, and most of the time they're clear, this red part is a unit that contains the feed and onto which the Triumph nib screws. So it's all kind of a contained unit. The feed slides in, the conical nib kind of helps keep it in place, everything keeps from sliding around, and there's adhesive keeping the nib on, and then there's adhesive on these threads. And so that's kind of the hard part that you really just have to be very patient on. So it's already a little gummed up and I'm not going to be able to screw it all the way down, but the first thing I do is start these things soaking. I may try once or twice to heat up this joint a little bit right here and just see that if I can grab it, finger over here, thumb contacting both the feed and the nib, trying to keep it as one unit as I can, and turning, you know, lefty loosey, righty tighty, if just some heat will allow this to come off. Most of the time that's not the case, so what I wind up doing is just soak it in water. I don't think I do ammonia, maybe I'll do some soap, but it's really just several days, maybe even a week or so of just soaking, letting it get in there a little bit over time, and then every so often, every few days, coming back, trying some heat. And when it finally gives way, like this one for some reason, just butter smooth, it just came out. Like when it releases, it releases. So the first step will be patience and soaking. Do not force this. And the things that tend to happen are either, maybe not either, but some of the things. So you might actually get the adhesive here, so you might actually twist your nib off, so you'll then have the cuff with the feed inside, and that's going to be hard. So you might have to re-glue just to get some tension in there, let that set, and then come back and see if it'll still act as a unit. Or what you can do is there will be a little bit of this plastic cuff still sitting above the level of the section, and it'd be tenuous, but maybe you can do something a little gripping and just try to use your friction and just like let the thread, this is threaded in here, it's not just stuck in there, it's threaded, to maybe you can unloosen it and get it out. But if you lose this seal, I'd suggest gluing it back on, super glue, shellac, something that'll be a little resistant to heat, so maybe super glue just for kicks, but again, maybe able to get off with like water and solvent, not solvent, but just water as a solvent, to maybe be able to readjust and do everything again. But I like to treat this as a unit. So that for me tends to be step one, maybe step two, because sometimes I'll be crazy and I'll want to get the, get this off first, because I can't really get the bar out. I can't get anything of this out until I get the top off. So that's why I do it. So that's the top, and then the bottoms of these come in two different flavors, and that's why I think it's good to have two pens out to show you. So these are just adhered in with a little bit of glue, and all they do is they thread into these bases. So it's a little bit of glue in there, and that's all that holds it in. So that's easy peasy. You might have to use some glue, not glue, but some heat, and just work it every so often, but that usually comes off no big deal. So I'll set that aside. And the other variation is, let's see, let's get everything back together. So there's a little collar, there is a little plastic piece that screws onto the end, and what that does is go into the base, so that's what lets these things spin freely. And then there's this little nut screws into that to kind of keep that in place, but it lets this kind of rotate around. It lets the bar rotate around within it. And to get this out, again, heat is your friend. I use these little tools, and I think I may have flashed them before, I don't remember. But these are little bent over bars made by probably pen tooling. Yep, says it. And they have different size chips. Some skinny ones, and still skinny ones. I feel like there's a fat one here somewhere, probably this guy. Yeah, a little bit fatter. So I will use the small or medium one typically, and I'll actually just pull one out. And I don't want to re-screw it in, but what they will do is they will sit into two grooves on, yeah, I'll take it off just to show. Two grooves on here, looks like a Phillips head, and they just kind of have this bend so they can sit in here. Maybe I chose the wrong size, but they will go in there, and that's what, when you apply your heat, you'll be able to get those seated in there and twist, and that's where this little groove comes in place, because you'll be able to work around and through that bar. So you're really just applying heat and getting this in there and just unscrewing it out. So again, not tedious, and you can rig something up for yourself. People have taken forceps, little tweezers, like sturdy tweezers, bent over the edges, filed them down to make them look like those tools. But that's the main variation between the two bodies, that extra little doohickey. And the important part is, do not lose. There it is. Don't want to lose it. There it is. Sorry, reaching over. Yeah, this little guy. So when you take him off, have a little cup. There's a lot of small finicky pieces that if you lose track, you've kind of messed up your repair unless you have extras. So and that's the way it basically looks. So I'll set that to the side. Otherwise, these are now the same. And I'll show you the little packing unit for this other one. See, this one's a more clear feed, and the nib is on top. So similar, just slightly different materials for that little collar is what I'll call it. And what else? So once you have, we'll get this back in. So once you have gotten the end off, you'll have the bar inside, you'll push it up, and this little thing will still be in there. And you'll need to get this out. And I have another little bar. This is from an old piece that, you know, is just used for parts. So I use another little rod and I push it through. Well, that actually worked. Okay. Oh yeah, it makes sense. So I would push it through and it pops out the front. And on the tip of this, you'll have a couple things. You'll have a conical nut. You'll have the remnants of, possibly the remnants of some kind of gasket. And here's the one from the is this it? Yeah. This is from the black one, but this tiny thing will be sitting between the nut, and then there's this collar, which I'm not sure if this is broken or they just actually do come in two pieces. Sometimes I just see them adhere to each other and I just assume it's one piece, but this nut, well, again, it's got some glue, so sometimes they're tight or a little corrosion in there. So heat, and the soaking will have helped us as well. But just screw that off. Try not to use forceps or pliers, anything, or pliers specifically, because these will crack. You will split these and ruin these. So try to just fingers as much as you can. And then you'll take off the little gasket. And this is like a little flangey thing. This one's actually in two pieces. And I'm not sure if that's broken from the base or what. It looks like it might be, but usually I see these things pretty adhered on. And this one is, I might put a little acetone here or glue to see if I can get it back to being one piece, but oftentimes this is just stuck on there, like this is adhered, and it doesn't matter if you need to remove it or not. But yeah, I think this might be supposed to be one piece. And if I bring back the other one, this one just has that little flangey thing. It does not have anything below it, so a little bit of variation, and this thing is stuck on there. I think I'm gonna get a little bit of a turn, but again, why take that off if you don't need to? You can clean around it, soap it up, wash it off, so you don't really need to get that part off. So that would be the deconstructed bar. So I would keep these together, because again, you lose that nut, it's going to be a pain to try to find a replacement. There we go. And so this may be tied for the hardest part, or the scariest part, I would think, of this whole procedure, is getting the packing unit out. So here's the top, and here's the bottom, where there would be, and I'll just kind of squeeze it in place. It's tight, but imagine that all the way pushed in. This would be sunk in a little bit, and you'd have this threaded area. And that's where your end meets. So just to keep it straightforward, this is the packing unit. And how I would get it out, and let me see if I can zoom out anymore. No, that's it. So this is a lot of scary trial and error, and it would be a lot of me, of course you've soaked this, so I would be applying heat here, because this thing seats, let's see, I hope I didn't get it too far in. Let me get it back out. Okay. How far does it seat in there? Smooth. Roughly that much. So maybe, what is that? A little over ½ centimeter or something like that. Sits in there. So you're heating this area up to try to expand it and just give even heat all around. What I would do, and there may be better ways, but I have my block and it will fit, because there's a little bit of gap in there. It seats far enough down that there's a little bit of a lip, right? It's not flush with that. So I tend to seat it here so that this has some room to move, but the barrel's supported. And let's see, I might have to move my camera a little bit. Let's see if I can give a different view. There we go. Get into focus, pick it back up. So I would heat, and I have this, I've shown this before, these are my little knockout dowels, but wood would be good, although with the pounding it, they might kind of dull and get distorted over time. But this one's nice because it's almost exactly the diameter of the inner barrel. There's not much wiggle room. Because what you'll be knocking out is, this is good to have the other one, this unit, and there's a little plastic flat piece that goes on top that kind of seals that in, and as it seats into the barrel, there is another little ledge on the inside that catches and just keeps it from moving forward. So, and this is a little protector cap, so that's what you would have. And so what I'm really doing is trying to get a dowel big enough that's going to take up most of that space on my packing unit and not apply uneven force anywhere. So to get back to this, put that in, heat all around, and I'm just going to do, I might have to move this back a little bit more, but or I'll just take this out. So imagine this on the block, and I would just do a couple good taps, good solid taps straight down. And it's hard for me to describe the force. I mean, be forceful, but don't go whacking this thing. So good solid tap just to see if you're breaking up the adhesive and this is expanding a little bit, and my indication will be that that gap disappears, like I've knocked it down to that gap. And then I know that I've gotten it loose, and then I'll apply heat, and I can just do that. So that's how I got these out both times, and one of them popped out surprisingly easily. I think it was this one that I was happily surprised with, and I lost it in my drawer that's open right here, which is good. It went to the drawer, so I'll find it in a second. And I will come use this one as my example. Okay, let's zoom in. So this is the packing unit that pops out. So tiny, and I'm so awkward. So we have the packing unit. We have this little thing that comes on top. That should pop off, and then you're left with what's packed in there. Hence, it's called the packing unit, right? And let's see if I have my handy dental tool. That will be useful. Dum, 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 dum. There it is. Ah. Got it. So everybody loves to show the packing material, and it's nice. Sometimes it'll be disintegrated or come out roughly, but we can just start to pick out the contents. This will be a series of layers of, here's a little rubber gasket. That's the top layer. And then you've got these varying thicknesses or layers of like little cottony, probably wax impregnated at some point. But these little layers of stuffing material that just come out. So put them down. People have been counting them. That's probably 2 right there. And then is there a third one at another one at the bottom? There we go. You get another nice rubber piece. And this one, I don't remember if this one held a vacuum or not, or it felt solid. But you get all these nice pieces off to the side, and that is it. That is an empty packing unit. So that's it. So these are the steps I would take to get everything apart. Occasionally you will find on this particular example these kind with the nickel plated or maybe even silver big, not even cap bands, because what these are just metal inserts that go onto a little lip at the bottom of this cap. So just cap lip. Sometimes these will be sliding off because their adhesive's gone. But you know, apply some epoxy adhesive, something that you like, and that'll get it back on. And these do have Not a spring clip. So this is definitely a bracketed inside clip. I'm not sure if I can see the inside, but no, it's not loose, so I'm not going to worry about it. And just the usual kind of things that you would look for in a cap, like maybe some tension brake lines there, but it's not the flexible clip, so I wouldn't expect as much. Sometimes you can feel some shrinkage of the caps around the inner cap lining. This one's actually pretty good. This one has the white dot. This part is the little piece where the cap would grab onto. These can be loose as well. Not a be-all end-all. There's ways you can get adhesive under there to kind of get it more solidified, let that be less of a loose thing, but you can even play with capping it, and even if they are loose, you can cap with some tension, just try to catch it, and you'll eventually get it. And then of course down here, you know, there's often these have the nice little ridge lines, and this is where people might bite or do something just to kind of fiddle with their pens. But overall, this one's actually really good, and there's some clarity to the barrel. I don't have my light handy, but hopefully you can start to see some of that amber in between these stripes. So this one's going to clean up very well, and I'll try to see if we can see the imprint on this guy. Zoom in and strain, but it's right there. I can start to see the WA Sheaffer, and a lot of times these have a number on them. Maybe this is a little too early to have one of the numbering systems. Maybe if I show the black one, I think this is a 1000 maybe, but here's the same imprint, and then down there is that a 1000? It is 1000. So I'll go into see if I can figure out some of the nomenclature about what the numbering system means when I kind of describe the pen a little more. So sorry for the long-winded first part. This is going on 25 minutes, but I'm going to emphasize this part. Zoom back out. This part is soak, soak, soak. Patience, patience, patience. Try a little heat. If it's not coming, soak it some more. Let your water be your friend. Water's not going to hurt anything as for the short time you're going to have this submerged. So please be patient and don't be too aggressive here. And then as far as this part goes, for this particular method, find a dowel that fits pretty securely in there to take up most of that space, and then just be gentle. Same thing. Heat and a good solid tap or two. Don't go banging away at it, because these things will fracture. You'll bust off this bottom part. So be patient. If you want to let that be soaking as well, do additional soaks just to get that out. Take your time. If not, then tune in for a follow-up video that I'll do with the second generation ones, which can also be applied to these, and we'll learn how to do a different way of getting that packing unit out. Okay, so I'll take a pause here, and what I'll do is I'll start doing my usual polishing and cleaning, and I will note that here, when I get this back together, this thing's a little bit off of alignment, so I'm going to have to work on getting the feed a little bit more centered. But I'm going to do my polishing with my micro mesh. I'll use my Simmerchrome and probably those plastic polishes, and I'll do the inside. And the thing that will come back on camera for is how we're going to repack the packing unit, the tools we're going to use, which will be, just to give you a heads up, some rubber cement and a replacement rubber gasket. And I'll show you that when we come back. So I'll clean up, we'll come back, and we'll continue. So stick around. And welcome back. I have everything cleaned up. I use my micro mesh pads, my polishes, like I said, and I just wanted to give a quick show of how things turned out. So here's the nice striated barrel. I think everything turned out to a nice gloss on it. And the black one as well came out very nicely as well. They almost look brand new in my opinion. But let me show you something a little bit of cool. One I knew was going to be, but the other one was a little bit of a surprise. So these are nice because they have some good clarity. So in between the striations, the stripes, you get this nice clear barrel so that you could see your ink level, and heck, you could even see it fill if you wanted to. And what I did was I took my Q-tips and some of the Simichrome polish and just really worked it in there till I got no more residue out of it. But the surprise for me was actually the black barrel. I just happened to hold it up to the light just for kicks and giggles and found there's an ink window there. I had no idea. This striated kind of textured grip section, I guess I had just assumed, like looking quickly, that it was just a dark celluloid, but nope, it's the ridges that kind of give it that more opaque appearance. And then there's a nice little ink window there, so that was a nice surprise for me. And so always give these things a double check, apparently. So the next thing to do, and this is laid out as they would be, I guess this is the exploded view. So the thing we have to do now, and I've already done one just to kind of show you the finished product, is fill the packing units. So this is the one I've done, and I'll show you. I even put the little sealing cap on just for kicks and giggles. Again, I've said that. But here's what it would look like otherwise. And this one I went ahead and put the little gasket in, and I'll show you what I did. This will probably be a little bit better of an explanation. So this is a little rubber gasket seal that you can get from a lot of places. I think I get mine from Anderson Pens, or maybe Independence, however you want to say that website. But it's just a perfectly sized rubber gasket that allows the rods, there you go, to go through with a little bit. I mean, it's tight, so it's definitely got a seal in there, and a little bit of silicone will allow that to go a little bit smoother, but it's definitely tight, and they're sized just right to kind of go into these packing units. If you were just to push it down, this one's like half full now, so they fit nicely in there with a decently tight fit, so that I would just take that and maybe tamp it down with one of my dowels, and it would just seat itself nicely in the cup, and you can kind of see, I think you can, yeah, they can, right in the middle you can see all the way through it. So it's well centered, fits nicely both around the rod and into the packing unit. So I suppose you could just pack this in there, put a couple in, and that would stack yourself up to the height of this thing. I guess maybe you could fit 2, maybe 3 in there, and that would just give you a nice secure pack. But what I've seen and what I've adopted is using a little bit of simple just rubber cement to kind of glue them in and keep them stationary. So what I've done with this one, and I re-recorded this because earlier I did it and it was a bit of a mess, and I was like, well, I'm touching my camera, it wasn't as clean as I had wanted it to be. But what I did was I coated, oh, I put it down, where did I go? There it is. So I just kind of coated one of these washers with the rubber cement, packed it down in there, and what I'm about to do, just to finish it off, is to seal it all the way up to the top. And again, you could probably leave it at this point, but rather than leave space for it to kind of move around and be pushed around, I think why I like this particular method is it just seems to, I don't know, make it look like a finished job, in my opinion. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a Q-tip, how far is that, and just get some of that, not Q-tip, toothpick, and really just finish it off. Just kind of put extra in there and kind of get it to the top of the packing unit. Just something like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. A little bit of stringiness there. And because I've already kind of done it, you can use, and one thing I think is good about this rubber cement is, one, it takes a while to dry, so you can play with it. It's not super time sensitive like a super glue or something that's going to dry really fast. It makes a good seal. This is going to really make this thing airtight. And I'm going to go ahead and poke through with the tip of the toothpick. Give it a little bit of a swirl. Yeah, it's kind of opening up. I'm trying to just to leave a space for the rod. So I'm just going to leave it there for a second. And it's viscous enough so that it'll kind of separate and it won't just automatically refill in. So now I've made a hole again through the rubber cement. Yeah. And that's pretty good. And the third thing is, unlike maybe a shellac or something that's really going to harden up, this stuff, if you apply some heat in a year, 5 years, 10 years, if you ever have to get back in here, this stuff will yield a little bit and you can kind of re-repair stuff. So it's not going to be as brittle as the plastic and maybe risk breaking everything if you try to get back into these packing units. So I think that's also another benefit for it. What else can I say? And the cleanup's actually pretty good. So if you do make a mess, I mean, this doesn't dry super fast, so you can just kind of wipe it away, and if it dries a little bit, it just kind of flakes off, because it really does need to cure for the better part of a day. And so this one has been curing for about a day. I think I recorded this late yesterday afternoon. So with this one, I did the packing, I filled it up with the rubber cement, and I used that extra little piece just like on the other one. This has that little cap piece too, and I went ahead and pre-glued it onto. As I fill it up, I just tap that on and let the tackiness kind of keep it in place. So that is a complete packing unit ready to go back into the barrel. Oh, and actually I think I just took that little cap off. Huh. Well, I am chagrined. There we go. It doesn't make a big difference. I'm just going to wind up maybe tacking this back on and inserting it into the barrel. So whether it stays on or not, doesn't matter. But let's see actually what this looks like after a day of drying. Yeah, nice and shiny, packed in there. And it did kind of pull back a little bit. So even though I had filled this to the top with the cement, it did kind of shrink as it dried, so it did leave a little bit of space, but that thing's really well surrounding the washer, so that should stay in there. But you know what, since the top came off, I'm just going to go ahead and do the same. I'm just going to top it up as well, might as well, and leave it open to dry, and I guess I'll come back in one more day to finish the packing, or to get the packing unit back into the pen. So just for sake of reiteration, maybe I should look around the camera, just kind of pack it in there, get a little bit more. Yeah. It's pretty good. I'll take my tip and just kind of go in there, give it some turns. Not tacky enough yet. I think as I twirl it, I'm really just getting it back on my stick, so I might not do that. I may have to come back if I occlude the hole. I can use a little small drill bit just to kind of reopen it, but we'll see what I can do. Or just a pick, a little dental pick, just to kind of open up the hole. Okay. Wipe it off with my finger. There we go. It gave me a little bit of a hole. I'll leave that. Yeah, I think I fiddled enough with it. I'm just going to keep doing the same thing over and over. So I've got myself a little bit of a hole that will contract, and I can see what I need to do when it dries. But Now we have 2 packing units with the rubber gasket covered with rubber cement. They're going to dry, and then we'll put them back in and finish the pens. So tune in one more time, we'll get everything finished up, and then we'll do our writing samples. So stay with me. Alright, welcome back. So it's been about a day. I've had everything kind of drying and ready to set in place, and I think I'm actually kind of lucky that I had 2 going at the same time, because this one I went ahead and seated the bottom in just so it's drying and set so we can mess with it a little bit more. So let me turn to the black one to set these aside. So we have the black one, and here is what, see if we can get it in there. It just kind of turned out to be with the rubber cement and the gasket. Hopefully you can see in there a little bit, but may not be worth the headache. There it is. You can kind of see the shine in there, and it just means that that little rubber gasket's well set in there. You see the glue all around, but it's not beyond the top. There's a couple little stringy things, but I think it's well sealed. And the next part we're going to do is get this part, the little cap that went with it, into the barrel. So yeah, the other one I did just because I thought, well, let me use some heat, because what I often do is, and I'll just kind of do it real quick. We'll see if I can do it without the heat on this one. But I'm taking just some regular shellac, and I'm going at the bottom of the pen. Actually, I do want to show one thing before we do this. That I want to just point out, see if I can show on the screen here. Maybe, yeah, I think you can see it. So there's the barrel, and then there's a little bit of a lip in there. That is just the only little perturbation of the tube itself. And let's see if maybe I can show it this way. Yeah, you see the shadow of the lip? That's going to be the stop that will only let our packing unit go so far. So I just want to make you aware of what's in there, because that little lid is going to sit on our packing unit, and that's going to help catch that lip, create a firm surface that's going to keep everything in that packing unit from being messed up. So that's what we're aiming for. So back to the shellac, simple shellac, and I'm going to go and I'm going to look over the camera, put this in the barrel just around. I don't have to try to fill up the whole thing, but kind of getting it at least in that lower half of that little lip area. There's some shellac. I'll get a little bit extra off, because pushing that packing unit in is going to spread that a little bit more. So here's the bit of a juggling part. So I'm going to put the cap on as best I can, and really what happens is you just kind of start it in there. I wonder if you can maybe even put that in first, but it's going to be tight. So I kind of did. But this is why I like the heat. I would use my air conditioner, not air conditioner, but hair dryer to kind of expand this a little bit, and that would keep the shellac soft. And so once it slips in, I just push straight down, and like I said, it seats itself. It's, you know, self-sizing, I guess. And just to double check, here's the cap on the end. Sits nicely in there. So that's what I did with the other one. I just did it ahead of time to let the shellac dry so I can put some pressure in it. And let's just take a peek inside. See if we can see anything. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Yeah. Yeah, and you can kind of see, maybe. But there's down to the bottom, there's the shininess of the plastic now, covering the packing unit. But that is it. Nice clean on the inside, seats itself nicely, and that is it, my friend. So let's go ahead and see if we can get the rod in the other one. And as you can see, I've already put a new little gasket on the tip of it, and where I got these from is Independence, and I got several, and they just came in recently, and they're nicely packaged. These are the small. They come in this nicely sealed package, so they're not going to go flying everywhere. And I did a quick measurement. I don't have a micrometer, but just with a little ruler. These small ones are about 8 millimeters, and then I also got some big ones. These are about 11 millimeters, and you'll definitely see the size. Definitely different. And this is the small one. It's just going to fit into this much smaller barrel, so definitely small size. That's where we're going to go. So for this, I'm going to bring back down the silicone. And I'll show a couple ways to do this. I have a little tool. Not everybody's going to have it, so it's fair to kind of show a couple different ways. I'm just going to put a little bit there. I'm going to let the friction kind of spread it as I get through. And here's, I'm going to use a tool. This is I got this from Pen Tooling. This is just a handle with a cylinder on it, and it's a threaded female end at the tip that will thread onto, if I can look over the camera, onto these bars. It just threads so that you can push, pull, and have some control over it. But to do that, do a little bit more grease at the tip here. Finger off. And I'm going to stick this through the bottom. So it's actually going to help me a little bit, pushing a little bit of glue or anything. So I put it through. It's going to come out this end, so it's going to be easy for me to attach and pull the rod right on through. There we go. It's attached, so I'm going to come back again. I'm going to put a little grease kind of on the bottom side of this. And all I did for this was I slipped the gasket on, I put a touch of shellac, and then I finger tighten that nut on top. It doesn't have to be crazy tight, but just enough to kind of keep it from slowly wiggling off over time. So that's all I did for that. And this can be a little bit tight. Nope, actually no. Came right on through. Ooh. Get that. Getting some of the silicone spread through. You can even hear that pop. I missed it the first time, but okay. So there we go. I'm gonna untwist my tool. There we go. And this is the easy one of the two types of bars. So I'm just gonna put a touch of shellac and then put this little knob on. That'll be all the way in. We're getting the pop nice. A little bit more. There we go. I can't grip it all the way because I keep having grease in my fingers. I might have to, there we go. A little bit more. All the way down. Okay. There we go. Very nice. And then the last thing we'll do is put the nib unit on, and I did want to say one more thing about that because I think I skipped it. So because I'm treating this as a unit and I didn't take off the nib, the feed, and remove it from the little plastic cuff, what I wound up doing is just soaking, and then to really kind of flush it out, you can take something like a nasal suction for a baby. I have two, so this is uncut as you would see it. And here it is cut down a little bit, just a little bit down the neck, maybe not quite halfway down. And all you need to do is get this on the tip. It's just a matter of flushing either your solvent solution, a touch of ammonia, and a little bit of water and soap, and then finishing up with a good flush of water to get it all clean. But it's a good way of getting these things cleaned. And then the last bit will be getting the nib unit on. So I'm going to go ahead and take a touch of silicone, put on the threads, just the bottom. I'm not going to put shellac or anything tight because, again, I like to let people get back into these if they want. And I may have to go back and do some heat just to kind of make sure things are opened up. Yeah, and it's feeling tight. So this is the idea. What I'm going to wind up doing, a little heat there, maybe there's some residual glue that's just kind of making it tough to get through, so that'll soften some of that up. I'll squeeze it all the way, turn it all the way down, it'll be a nice smooth flush. And then we'll be able to kind of get this guy finished, degrease him, get him shined up, and we'll do a little bit of riding sample with him. So I'll set that guy to the side, and I'll show you one other thing. Alright, and I do want to show one last thing, in case you don't have a handy little tool that lets you snake through to pull the bar in. You can do just a little bit of pressure, and you'd have to be careful, but let's kind of show what I used to do before I had this little tool. So put a little, kind of a lot, put a decent amount of silicone grease on the tip like that. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit down here, just like usual. And for this part, it's just going to be a matter of pushing it through. So as you slide it in, as it sits in there, there's going to be a little bit of a gap. It might just start to touch and center itself into the packing unit. So that's what you're going to have to count on. You're going to put it down, and it's going to kind of center itself. It just kind of sits in there like so. And I guess you could do a couple things. Maybe we can just wiggle, kind of get the tip pushed through. And this one for some reason was very difficult when I tried to just do it by itself. So I have another little tool, or you can find anything that's going to be able to press on the tip and give you some downward pressure. And I'm trying to push down and give it a little wiggle just to help see in case the bar is not actually seating itself. And this one's actually more trouble than I thought. Let's see if I can do it again. Am I zoomed out so you can see? I think as far as I can go. That one was hard, probably because this was not super centered, so it just had to find its seat in there. So I pushed in, and I can grab it, and everything's intact. I could hear that. Did you hear the little suction? There it goes. You can hear it. So that's the quick and dirty way if you didn't have anything else. And earlier, before I used this tool that has a little space in the middle, this is a little Sheaffer tool to kind of knock some feeds out that have little air breather tubes. What I really did was I just kind of pressed on the table just to kind of get that seal past the lip, and that's, I think, really what I was fighting against, plus minus this little tip, just trying to find the center and be able to go through. So it's a little bit of wiggling and pressure, but I think without special tools, that's the way it's going to have to go. And if anybody knows of a different way, by all means, leave in the comments, let me know. One day I might lose this and I'll need to know. But that is very nice. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of extra grease just along this, just to really get it fed into the packing unit so it can be really nice and easy to slide. That's pretty good. And then I would just finish up this particular pen, and I'll show it, but I'll take my little nut with the Phillips side facing up, slide it on. I would go ahead and grab just a touch of shellac, touch the tip of that, not too much, and take this little plastic knob, screw it on. That can just be finger tight, nothing special. And that's going to slip into here and be encased with the little nut thing. And I will grab one of my little tools, but of course I said earlier, if you have a pair of tweezers that you don't mind just kind of bending over, maybe flattening the tip, those would be able to get in here as well. This may be kind of too thin of a neck, but a little hardier tweezers you could probably make to fit the occasion. Let me find one I think works. There we go. And this is also something you could maybe put some shellac on as well, but again, for the sake of being able to repair these things, if it's got a good hold, I'm not too worried about it. And if me or the next person who owns it wants to do it, by all means. So I'm just going to get this set down. And I think that's as far as I can go. Let's see. There we go. Screw it down. I have a little bit of a gap, so I probably have a little bit more that I can get that nut into, because I don't think my packing unit can go down any further. I've got a nice lip there, so I think it's really well seated. So it's probably just a matter of this. And now my hands are greasy, so I may have to go wash and wipe just to be able to hold on to these things. Yeah, I may have to do that off camera, but let's see. Did I make any? Oh, there we go. Yep, a little bit more, and I got the gap closed. So the last thing I would do is, this one doesn't seem to have a lot of gunk on it, so let's just see if I can put some silicone grease rather than adhesive, again, for all the reasons I keep saying. And see what this guy's gonna do. Let's go in nicely. Oh, there we go. This one didn't have much gunk left, so I didn't have to soften it. And there we go. There we have it. So everything is nicely put apart. Let's see if I can get a sound. A little bit. I can hear the puff. The test will be with some water or with some ink. So there we go. We have both completely done. So now I will go clean myself up, do a little bit of learning, and we'll come back and see. Well, you know, might as well just do them both. We'll see how they both write. We'll see in a little bit. And here we are at the end. We have everything put together, polished, finished, and ready to show off. So I imagine I should start with a few corrections. I believe in the beginning of the video I called these balance pens, or maybe the end of the last video I'll call them balance pens. And to me, I guess I'm still learning a lot of nomenclature and when things start and when things stop. But I think that I was just kind of seeing the torpedo shape of these pens and just assuming they were balance Vac-Fillers. But I think the thing that trumps it or takes over is the fact that these have Triumph nibs. So these are Triumph pen lines, even though they look kind of like a balance. So what can I wrote down a few things. I should do a few corrections. Let me correct everything I think I said wrong about this one. So definitely not balances. These are Triumphs. And this is what I think I called this maybe nickel plated, silver plated, but nope, chrome plated. Nice and chrome. And anything else? Maybe not, but let me just go into the spiel about some of the things I learned. So Vac-Fills in and of themselves came out probably about 1935, and they were introduced in some of the Sheaffer sub-brands like the Wasp and the vacuum fill line. And then they were introduced into the balances, and I think I actually have one that I believe now is a balance. If I can find it in my drawer without taking too much time, but I was actually just playing with it. Why do I not have it? Yeah, one of these guys. I believe this is a balance. This has a lifetime nib, but it's got the simple balance kind of tapered shape. It has the simple cap band. This is the military clip, but this is a balance with a Vac-Fill in it. So they do exist. I wasn't making it up apparently, but these are Triumphs. And the Triumph line came out about 1942, just after the US got into the war. So one of the cool things, like historically and aesthetically speaking, about the way the Triumph design came out, or why they kind of called it that, I suppose, was that using lever fillers and having all the sacks in all their pens was a big use of rubber. And for the wartime effort, they wanted to minimize that. So while the rubber was being diverted to the military, they could get away with just a couple little pieces in the packing unit and a little bit up here in the plunger rod itself. So a lot less rubber overall, and you have actually a nice bigger reservoir to actually have your ink in. So you're using the barrel rather than a little rubber sack. So win-win in that situation. And what else? Another kind of design element that's kind of interesting is this. Apparently Triumphs early on, 1942 or so, were known for their ginormous cap bands. And it served a couple of purposes. One, it kind of made for a sleek aesthetic, you know, while the Parker 51 at the time and everything was trying to copy it and do the full metal caps. This was just the big cap band, which one allowed people to put their signatures, their initials, and customize it up here and have plenty of space to do that. But also it just kind of made the stream like you go from the barrel into this metal trim into this tip of the cap, and it's not clear where one starts or one ends, like here or here, but it just allowed you to open up and just really have this almost like solid looking piece of pen, which is kind of nice. And what else? Anything else I can say? So this is just the Triumph. This is the Sheaffer Triumph. I think that's basically what it's called. And there are other little trim options that kind of change the name a little bit. And then we have this guy, which is probably a little bit later, using plastic. And this still feels like celluloid, to be honest, but I'd have to double check that. But this is definitely plastic. It's got the plastic cap, the plastic body, and this is a 1000. So did I write down what it was? I think I did. I think it's a lifetime Triumph is what it is, just because it has a smaller cap band overall, and there's some other ones that have kind of shifted up. They're a little wider, they're bigger, but I think this is kind of like the base 1000 model. It's a decent size, but it's not, you know, it's not super girthy, it's not super long, so a nice simple starter 1000 model. But let's go ahead and get into showing this off a little bit, and then we'll do a little bit of writing sample, and I'll give you some thoughts. So here we have the nice Sheaffer white dot. We have a smooth clip. It doesn't have anything on it, no Sheaffer. It's just a crimped in clip. There's no real spring in it, it's just a tight clip overall. And this does have the half ball. It's gotten away from the full ball clip of the balances. And what else? We have this nice dome. There's no teeth marks, no chipping. This chrome is nicely intact. I mean, it's not perfect. If you get up close, you can see a little bit of some change in it, maybe little scratches and things, but this is where you're going to see a lot of these pens have issues. Like chrome will be gone, there'll be some rust and some kind of deterioration to it. So this is where a lot of these come, and sometimes these are even loose, so you can kind of slide them off and on. We have a very nice, let's see if I can get the glare, imprint. It's there. I'll just flash it real quick, but it's all the way down to the patented in USA, very crisp, very clean. We have the two-tone Sheaffer conical nib. Again, playing with around with a little bit of light here, sorry about that, but it is lifetime two-toned. These are not going to be flexible because these conical ones just are not that. All the way around. And then of course we have the knurled knob at the end. All the way out, all the way in, and it goes back down tight. And just like the other time I showed you, let's see how clean this guy got. We have a nice transparent body, and this I believe is a it's not super bright, so I'm going to call this the gray pearl. I imagine that the marine green, the green pearl would be a little bit more distinct, so this I believe is the gray pearl. And of course, let's see if there's any difference for the 1000. I'll zoom in out just a touch, but again, very nice white dot, smooth clip, It's feels like, is it a little bit springy? But it still feels like a bolted clip, so I don't think it's got the spring design yet, which kind of probably puts it maybe just before 1945. What else? This one is a solid gold, not two-tone nib. All the way around. It's got this nice, continuing the trend of these swirled sections, and this one has a couple little dings in it. Maybe you can see it in the glare, but yeah, this one has a couple maybe tooth marks or little gouges in it, but nothing too major. Of course, we have the imprint on this one. Maybe we can see it, maybe not, but it has the nice full imprint, Sheaffer Pen Company, made in USA, and then down here is the 1000. And this guy, knurled knob, nice and clean. And yeah, get a little sound out of it. I like it very much. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this with a nice black Sailor ink. Give it a little shake. And let's see if we can get the bubbles on the camera. So to fill these guys, you undo the knob, lefty loosey, righty tighty, bring it all the way out. And that has a little bit of a spring, like it wants to come back down, so you know it has a good vacuum in it. And I'm going to lift it up here to the speaker, so I'm going to dip it fully into the ink. I heard some bubbles. We're going to give it a few seconds to fill up. And these should be one-stroke fills. You're not supposed to be doing this multiple times. And I will go ahead and lock down my knob. Let it drain off. And my paper towel is under the leg of my camera, so 1 second. There we go. Little bob. And let's go ahead and wipe off the nib. Get it all the way around. Okay, and let's see how this guy writes. So, I will go ahead and cap my ink so I don't make a spill. We know how clumsy I am by this point. So let's go ahead and see how this particular guy writes, and then we'll switch over to the black one. So this one is clearly an extra fine at best nib, but it's really leaning towards the extra fine. Am I on? There we go, on camera. So if I do my sentence, though it's fine, extra fine, it's really keeping up a pretty good consistent line. And I will say this does not feel scratchy at all. Pen on paper, of course, I say that a lot, but this is not scratchy. I don't feel any issue or digging into the paper, and I don't need to pull out any paper that it's digging into. So this is a well-made nib so far. And if we kind of see what it lays down, this is where I might get some paper in the nib. Pretty dry, which kind of makes sense for an extra fine, but you know, I don't really know how the performance of the Sailor ink is in all pens. I don't use it too very much, but it does seem like it's a fairly dry writer, but fairly fine and consistent writer, so that if I scribble, it's keeping up. So true to the Sheaffer form, it seems like this is going to be a workhorse pen. And I'm going to push, dig into that paper a little bit. No real flex, of course, as you would not expect from these Triumph nibs. Let's see if there's reverse writing. Can we get super fine? Reverse writing. And that's actually pretty smooth too. And it really doesn't look that different than normal. Maybe a hair, but I think it's pretty good. So this is I think, as far as size goes, pretty comfortable pen. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. There we go. Pretty comfortable. I can hold it here. It fits in the crook of my thumb. Not overly big, not overly small. I can hold it fairly relaxed. It's not too skinny. I actually kind of like this size. This is not something I'm really trying to pinch onto. It's not a super narrow pen. Given that it is vintage, it is, you know, they do tend to run a little bit small. If I wanted to, let's see, it posts securely, and I would say similar to the balance, it doesn't really add much weight back here. I'm trying to see. Yeah, that's negligible at best, so I still feel most of the weight up here, so it's going to be a nice rider where I can probably ride with this for a long time. The only thing that I think I'm not liking about it is this catch ring here for the cap. It's kind of right in the middle of where I would hold it. You have this little step off between the barrel and where it kind of starts to taper down, and so this very slim, I don't know, traditional section, this little neck from the barrel, and then this cap ring is right here. And oddly, like, I do feel that, like, it's kind of rubbing me right there on that knuckle, and it's not the most comfortable thing. And I can't really change anything about the way I write. Like, I could pull back a little bit and kind of be in this little narrow area here, but I do feel this step off, and it does kind of, it is noticeable, and I can't really go much further because, hey, I'm on the nib and I'm going to get all these inky fingers. So I guess it's either bear that, tolerate this, or really be back on your pen, which then you'd be forced to cap it. So I like the overall, like, aesthetics of the design, but I think that cap ring being right there is probably a limitation for some people. So I'm not super keen on it, but I do love the pen overall. So let's go ahead and see if I can empty it, and we'll see how much it filled. So to undo, let's see if I can figure this out and not block the view. So I'm going to unscrew. Here's where it's going to happen. You'll often lose some ink as you lose the vacuum, as you pull back. So let's just watch for that. Pulling back, there it goes. It drops off some ink, and I'll plunge out the rest. A few extra drops, but then some bubbling around the feed. So I seem to hold a decent amount. I liked it. So let's just kind of go and show the other one real quick, just to see a couple examples of the Triumph. So I'll cap this guy, come back over here to my 1000 model. I will do the same thing. Boom, boom, boom. So we're going to undo the back end. Oh, there we go. The other way you know the vacuum happens is as I push it semi down, it shoots itself back up. So good seal. We'll dip it. That's a good pop. We'll give it a few seconds. While we wait, we can lock it down. And then I will come back and wipe it off. There we go. Okay. Got a good wipe. I'll go ahead and close my ink. There we go. That's right, let's get it flowing since I wiped the nib. There we go. So this one, this 1000 model, pretty good. Let's see, can you see? I'll zoom back in just a touch, move my pad. Okay, so this is the 1000 model. Looks like we have, I'd go ahead and say a medium line. That's nice and dark. Let's give it a scribble. More wet than the extra fine, which totally makes sense. Not a gusher, but decently wet. That's right with our sentence. Okay. Pretty good overall. A little pen on paper. There's ever so slightly, maybe just a touch of scratchiness if I go to the right. Yeah, ever so slightly. So I'm gonna have to take this to the loop, see if I can do a little bit of smoothing, but you know, just off the bat, it's writing well. I mean, I could let this pass, but I'm gonna try to make it a little bit smoother. And let's see, any variability? I'm gonna guess no. And I am right. Like maybe the hairs, like the smallest hair of flexibility, but that's just brute force. So not a flexi writer. And let's go. Does take it down a step, maybe kind of get into the fine territory, and that's actually pretty smooth. I could see myself kind of doing a little annotation with this, doing my writing. It's like, no, let's X, Y, Z, let's do a little bit of change. So decent reverse writing. And again, this one's probably similar in size to the other one. So just to hold them up real quick. They look to be pretty much the same, at least capped. So it looks like the 1000 is definitely living up to just a standard overall size. So probably the same comments. Let that roll while I cap my other one. I mean, it sits kind of similar place in the hand, kind of back to that crook. I don't have to crunch up on it, but again, if posting's your thing, posting you will get. And what else can I say? This one almost feels like a touch fatter, maybe. I don't have calipers, but maybe it's about the same, but almost it feels a little bit, maybe slightly larger, maybe a little more just in the middle, but it feels maybe just a touch bigger. But I guess the biggest improvement would be this. They took my advice, clearly, and they used this kind of knurled spiral section, and they moved the cap ring back, the catch back, so that now I have a little bit more place to hold, and it's pretty good. I like it, unlike, what was it, the touchdown, where for some reason those particular threads, that spiral section, I didn't like. This one I'm not feeling as much, and that would be good. So if you're going to write for a while, you get a little bit sweaty, you're not going to slide down quite so much onto the nib, and if you're a tight holder, maybe it prevents you from riding up on the barrel a little bit. So this is, I think, a good modification. They probably had some feedback, and this is why they did this. And I like the gold trim on it. I like the classic black, the gold trim. This is a fully gold nib. This is no longer the two-tone that the other one was. So this is probably some decent step up in price, just having a nice gold nib. And what else can I say? I mean, these, again, Sheaffers, I'll say it every single time, workhorse. Well-designed pens, last a while. So, like, if you can overcome getting these Triumph nibs out and getting the packing unit out, you can really refurbish these and make these workhorses for probably another 50, 60 years at least, or however long these rubber things last. Probably that's maybe just a bit generous, but I love these guys. And these would be fantastic if I could have a 1250 or 1500, something that's gonna maybe open up my hand a little bit. Oh, that'd be beautiful. So, yep, thumbs up for these guys. Extra thumbs up for having fixed that particular problem. Got a little drippage there. Let me wipe that up. Yeah, just waving everything around. There we go. Okay, and let's do the same with this one. Let's see if I can see what drops remain in this fill. I'm going to open up, pull back, see what spills out. That's a decent amount. Oh, I hope you saw that. But it spilled. And I can still eject a little bit extra. So, good ink capacity. I like these guys for that. And if you had that extra fine nib with this ink capacity, you'd be writing for a long time. So let's go ahead and lock that down again and show you some writing. There's the extra fine, kind of the gray pearl version. And then we can come down here to this very like heavy medium line, medium, almost getting to broad, but definitely medium. So yeah, go back that way. Okay. And okay, so to keep in line with my previous teasers, I think we should move on to only what makes sense, I think, for now. We've been steadily in the vac filler territory, both in Parker and in Sheaffer, so we're going to jump back to Parker now, and we're going to go to the Parker 51, and I have a couple interesting ones here that came to me recently. This one is quite a dirty demonstrator, so I'm really excited to see how to get this guy cleaned up. And it's not going to be a mystery if you've watched the other Parker Vacuumatic videos. This part stayed the same, so we might not spend too much time on it, but just how the Parker 51 kind of feed assembly goes in, that might be what we focus on for this guy. And this will give us a good demonstration of the vac filling system. So pushing down, expelling the air, letting back up, creating a vacuum, and watching that ink spurt in through that little breather tube. So this will be fun just to see a demonstrator. And this other one, which hopefully the light will catch it, I'm filming at night, so I just have the lights of my LEDs, but this is a Plum Parker 51, and it is an aerometric. So again, we can see the inside of the Parker 51 kind of nib feed assembly, but then we can see if we can get inside here. And so if you ever have to exchange, if you get an aerometric and you feel that the silicone sack is old, a little too old, a little too dry, you don't want to keep it, we can get in here and replace these. And that's what I'm going to have to debate. I'm going to open this guy up. Do I want to keep it? Do I not? And we'll see. But that will be next time. So we'll see these, but then we'll say goodbye to these wonderful pens. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.